Alongside a Pokemon's design, personality, or inspiration, a Pokemon's name is actually a crucial part of our impression of that Pokemon. So today I want to break down some of my favorite and my least favorite Pokemon names, analyzing the etymology and the thought process behind some of them. Today we'll start small, with some of the more unconventional names found in the early generations of Pokemon. Firstly, it's important to understand that not all names are created equally. There are the early generation corruptions of real-world words, the more recent hybrid of two words, or the ones that are even more complex, and utilize a mix of those two methods or do away with those at all. So let's focus on the first type of name that I just identified, and establish the do's and the don'ts for this method before moving on to the next. By the end of the video, we'll have begun our growing laundry list of how to create a great Pokemon name. So let's go back to 1996. While there were plenty of names that fit into the modern Pokemon mold of hybridizing two or more words, a whole lot of Pokemon in the first generation simply used corruptions of pre-existing English words, probably to emulate the simple Japanese names, which were often also just English words. I guess back then there was no precedent to do anything more, so that's why they didn't give complex names to most of these creatures, and I think it really is hit or miss. A lot of these Pokemon employ truncated versions of English words, like Eevee being pulled from the word evolution, or Paras being a shortening of the word parasite. I think these work well enough, because they sound phonetically pleasing and not too awkward, while clearly illustrating the main theme or the main idea behind the Pokemon. Eevee can evolve into many different Pokemon, and Paras has a parasite on its back. I like it. Now we move into the far more common type of name in Generation 1, names that are straight up words that are misspelled to serve as the names. A lot of these are not top tier Pokemon names, but they do get a pass because they can still accurately convey something unique about the Pokemon's elements or their personality. Onyx is a giant mineral snake, hence its name is a one-letter corruption of onyx, the real-life mineral. Drowsy is just a goofy taper, who's, well, drowsy most of the time, and Hypno is a full-on creep who uses hypnosis to lure its prey, hence Hypno. Scyther and Pinsir equally convey how they harm their prey, suggesting something about their aggressive behaviors, and they also just sound like bug-type names to me. Porygon is a nice corruption of the word polygon, and it gets a pass for using this method, since it's man-made, so it can sound different from most Pokemon names by default. Same with Unknown. While it's pronounced spelled virtually identically to the real world, it's a very effective way of conveying this Pokemon's strange status as a creature in-universe. That's why I also love Mew and Mewtwo, with Mew being a simple name conveying the Pokemon's common ancestor role through its relative plainness, while also being cute. And I know it's not a direct evolution, but I love the iteration into Mewtwo, a very simple change that very effectively communicates that the Pokemon has a clone-like or artificial nature, while also suggesting that 2 is not only a copy, but a superior iteration of the first version. Porygon evolves into Porygon 2, and the name changes in the same way. It's almost like a software update, so I like those names. Coughing and Wheezing work well because their names are crude misspellings of the condition that they inflict on their opponents using noxious gases. I like that it goes from coughing to full-on wheezing, indicating an increase in severity of its poison as the evolution progresses. Same with the Aberline. It's a simple breakdown of the classic fictional wizard spell, but I like that the names increase in complexity as the Pokemon progresses through its evolutions, thus completing the spell fully as it becomes a more fully realized psychic type. Finally, Ghastly and Haunter are two descriptors for figures that are ghostly and creepy. There's no iteration there, but I still think they work pretty well, because the words aren't that common. And again, it alludes to their personality. And Gengar is a nice pull from the word doppelganger, which works well for this shadowy Pokemon. The fact that it's spelled and pronounced differently works so well and gets bonus points for me, especially because it makes Gengar feel really unique, and not like it's just using the word that we're already familiar with. It goes a step further. Kabuto also kind of falls into this category, because Kabuto is just the Japanese word for samurai helmet, alluding to the Pokemon's body type and rock-hard composition. Yanma is a Japanese word for dragonfly, and it's used for dragonfly Pokemon. It's pretty straightforward. Similar deal for Wooper, though this Pokemon pulls from pop culture a little bit by getting its name from Wooper Looper, which apparently salamanders and axolotls are called in Japan. I'm not really sure, there aren't that many sources on this. But what is important to mention is that while the name Wooper might be obscure, or even outright nonsensical to Western audiences, I think the name fits. As a kid, I loved Wooper, and every time I saw it, I went, yeah, that's a Wooper. I know that's subjective, it's an intangible factor, but it's very important for a Pokemon name. Even when pulling from something as simple as a pop culture reference or just a word, matching the Pokemon in terms of the way the word sounds just matters. Like, this isn't a Wooper. This is a Wooper. However, while you could just make that subjective case that a Pokemon looks like a Yanma, a Kabuto, or a Wooper, it also runs another risk. For English fans, the method works well because chances are you don't know the Japanese word, so the name does stand alone as a Pokemon name, but the downside is that if you're not familiar with the word itself, you have no indication of what the Pokemon is solely based on the name. Like, looking back, I can admit that Kabuto is a pretty clever name for a rock-type, domed, horseshoe crab Pokemon, but as a kid, I just didn't pick up on that, obviously. A lot of the names that I just listed are good examples of names that, again, convey something deeper about the Pokemon, their powers or their personality. Like, coughing has gas that makes you cough, and Eevee can evolve into many forms. However, some Generation 1 Pokemon don't quite get a pass, because they don't convey much about the Pokemon beyond what we already know through the physical design. Instead, they simply refer to the Pokemon by its real-world animal name, like Ekans or Arbok being snake and cobra backwards, Seal and Dugong being corruptions of Seal and Dugong. The name Seal is perhaps the poster child for this problem in the community. It's been a running joke for over 20 years, but even more egregious is the use of Dugong for Dugong, since real-life Dugongs are more closely related to manatees or elephants than sea lions, the ones that Dugong actually seems to be based on. Krabby also suffers from this problem. I guess you could say it has a double meaning as the adjective, meaning grouchy, but the problem is that it doesn't exactly match the Pokemon's personality. Krabby is actually a pretty jolly fellow, so the name comes off as a bit too straightforward for my taste. Persian follows the same issue. It doesn't convey anything beyond what we already know from the design itself. This is a domestic cat Pokemon, so I hope you understand my issue with these names, because they don't quite reach as far as they possibly could to convey something interesting about the Pokemon. But of course the lines between good and bad names are very blurred, because this is, at the end of the day, a subjective process, and I can't definitively say even I know which are good or bad in every single case. Again, you might disagree with me, but personally, from this first initial case study of the early generations, I think we can end this video with a few rules that we've identified so far. Firstly, names should sound like they match the Pokemon's personality. Again, a Wooper just looks like a Wooper. A Haunter looks like it would haunt you, meanwhile, a Krabby isn't all that crabby. So this is a crucial part of Pokemon naming that should be followed, not only for these single word early gen style names, but also for the more complex names that we'll find later on. Secondly, names should iterate phonetically throughout the evolution line. Aber to Alakazam is a clever example of conveying increased complexity and power through the name alone, whereas Seal to Dugong doesn't really tell us much, beyond a Pinniped turning into a different Pinniped, I guess? Names should also at least be a shortening or a corruption of a word rather than the word itself, to separate Pokemon from reality. But sometimes names do get a pass depending on the last two factors that I just mentioned. Like Coughing and Kabuto are pretty good names. They're simple and they convey something a bit deeper, so I like it. So those are just a few entries to our ever-growing journal on how to create great Pokemon names. This video is based off of Generations 1 and 2. I hope it was informative and entertaining. So let me know your idea for future subgenres of Pokemon names you'd like to see me tackle in a future video. Also be sure to join the Tam Valley Discord for updates on new videos and opportunities to submit fan art for the channel. I'll be back with my long-awaited rewrite of Pokemon Z as my next video, so stay tuned for that. I'm really excited to share that one with you guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time for more content.